I think our political divisions are delusional. I think that our country's values are pretty much in close lockstep. What we're disagreeing about are more surface level philosophies that certain people and institutions have been oversimplifying and then using propaganda to manipulate or indoctrinate parts of the population. In reality, most of us agree on the underlying core values. We've essentially just been cutting them in particular ways, cutting particular facets and angling them in a way that makes it seem like we're polarized when we're not. We're not polarized at all. I'll use it for example. Abortion. Nobody's happy about abortion. You know what I mean? Like happy that it's the numbers are high or whatever. It's not something to be happy about. Every woman I've ever met who's had an abortion, it's been a really emotionally impactful, hard experience, and they did not enjoy it. They had possibly regrets or second thoughts. It was a painful experience. Nobody's looking forward to that. Nobody wants that to happen as much as possible. On the Christian right, they want zero tolerance. They want zero. And if you look at things statistically, that's not possible. People will have abortions, and you could argue that God aborts more fetuses than any institution because there are so many miscarriages in every given year. I think it outnumbers the number of abortions. So it's got to keep this in mind. Also, it's sort of ironic that we have so much emphasis on fertility, like all sorts of fertility medicines, things to try to promote people having children, which is sort of an unnatural technological control of nature and the body. And then we don't want to accept going in the other direction because that's murder. So in any case, those are ideas that we're not that far off from. Nobody wants more abortions. We would love to minimize abortion by encouraging people to take responsibility for their actions and not take actions that they can't take responsibility for, and essentially minimize the abortion rate. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. That's really what we all want. But we don't want to see it that way. We want to see it as a zero-sum game. We win, you lose. And that's politics. That's not reality, it's politics. Another major issue is socialism versus capitalism. We all live in a capitalist country. There may be a few fringe people who actually want full-on socialism. They're not a majority and there are not many of them. Their voice isn't very strong. That said, socialism is the basic social contract between people in a tribe that has existed since the beginning of human civilization. It's always being balanced with meritocracy. The greatest hunter in the tribe may be rewarded with more of the spoils and more status in the community. Perhaps more wives, if that's how your culture works. The biggest tent, the biggest house or whatever. But the greatest hunter in your civilization will not have 400 times the wealth of anybody else. That's not realistic. Not until we had city-states and kings did that happen. And those kings had to be very, very clever at manipulating people in order to maintain that pyramidal power structure and extreme disparity in wealth. Because in a tribal society, you would be torn down. You'd be killed. You'd be exiled for that kind of arrogance and disregard for the backs of everyone you had to stand on to get that high. That's just, it's not real, is what I'm saying. And now in society today, we basically have increased the wealth disparity through our policies by a dramatic amount. We have people with hundreds of billions of dollars when most of the population has no savings, has essentially less than $100,000 It's like I can borrow. You know, it's like this is incredible disparity in wealth. Are we the richest country in the history of the earth? Yes. Are our poor people, you know, worse off than poor people 1,000 years ago? Probably not. You know, they have still access to sanitized water and whatnot, bathrooms, so emergency medical services, which are very expensive, incidentally. So socialism versus capitalism is not a real debate. That's a fear-mongering tool to scare people from any social programs. And the criticism of capitalism is nuanced. Capitalism in and of itself is just meritocracy applied economically, right? But if you apply it with no restraints whatsoever, we know what you get. Historically, we know how damaging that is to a society. And we have it again today. You see the incredible wealth disparity. You see the domination. You see that corporate entities have more influence over government than any people, than even large coalitions of people. That special interests have now gotten into our government to the point where it doesn't feel free to any of us. It feels like our politicians are compromised and that we're in an oligarchy. And I would say that on the right and the left, we basically agree on that. So this is the great problem of our times. It is essentially capitalism run amok. Capitalism needs some restraints, not full-on socialism. We're never going to go there. That's not who we are as a people. But do we need constraints on both sides? Yes. We need promises that we're not going to go slipping all the way to a socialist state, nor that we're going to continue what we're doing, which is highly unfair and creates a disparity that actually makes people unhappy and historically leads to revolutions. We don't really want a revolution, do we? If you do, let's have another conversation, because revolutions are bloody and they are ugly, and people's psyche do not recover easily from that bloody revolution. Economies don't recover easily either. So it's going to be very costly if we have to have an actual revolution. My proposal is that instead we actually start to philosophically understand what we're talking about, so that we pull it beneath the level of political rhetoric and polarized disagreement to the level of what's really going on here. What are the ideas we're actually arguing about? Because I think we'll find that value-wise we're in lockstep on most things, and we just need to calm our fears so that we can talk about those things again in a civil manner. The other thing is really just emotional equilibrium. If we can't find emotional equilibrium, we are just going to continue to judge and, you know, do quick snap judgments and not actually think at all. This is the tendency of human beings in general. So we have to find that resource inside to calm down and go, hey, what's really going on here? Can I actually think about this like I'm playing a game, like I'm volleying ideas that aren't me? None of these ideas are me. They're just ideas that I'm entertaining, and I'm looking for the right configuration of the puzzle pieces. It's not about me winning or losing. It's about, let's have clarity about what's really going on here.